Hello and welcome to EP Learning English. Today, I want to talk about something that touches all of us, no matter where we are in life. Time. Time is one of those things we can't control. It moves forward whether we act or not. It doesn't stop, it doesn't wait, and it doesn't ask permission. Sometimes it feels like a friend, giving us opportunities and chances. But sometimes, if we're not careful, it can feel like a thief, taking away moments we thought we had. Have you ever looked back and thought, wow, that year went by so fast? Maybe you promised yourself you would start exercising, or maybe you said you'd practice English every day. And then, suddenly, 12 months passed, and nothing really changed. I remember once speaking to a friend who had been talking for years about learning how to play the guitar. Every time I asked him about it, he would smile and say, "One day. Maybe when work gets less busy, maybe when life slows down." But here's the truth. Life never really slowed down for him. Work stayed busy, responsibilities kept growing, and weeks turned into years. Now, when he looks back, he sometimes wonders, if I had started back then, I could be playing beautifully today. That's the funny thing about time. It passes anyway. And the only question is, what will we do while it's passing? Think about your own life. 1 year from now will come, whether you take action or not. Imagine yourself 1 year in the future. Will you be grateful that you started something today, even if it's small? Or will you be wishing you had taken that first step? This is why today's topic is so important. Time will pass anyway. Do the thing. Regret is heavier than failure. So as we move through this episode, I want you to keep that picture in mind. The picture of yourself 1 year from now. What will you thank yourself for starting today? Because time won't wait, and neither should we. The weight of time. You know, one of the most common things I hear from people, whether they're talking about learning English, starting a business, or even making a change in their health, is this: I'll start when the time is right. It sounds reasonable, doesn't it? We all want the conditions to be perfect. We want free time, energy, motivation, maybe even a little extra money. But here's the reality. That perfect moment rarely, if ever, comes. Life doesn't suddenly stop and roll out a red carpet for us to begin. It keeps moving forward, day after day, whether we act or not. Think about it. How often have you told yourself, "I'll begin tomorrow," and then tomorrow came, and suddenly tomorrow turned into next week, and then next month, and before you knew it, an entire year had passed? It happens to all of us. It's part of being human. We convince ourselves that the future us will have more discipline, more courage, more time. But the truth is, the only time we really have is now. There's a saying in English that I really like. Time flies. It's such a simple expression, but it carries a powerful meaning. Time doesn't walk slowly. It doesn't wait for us to get ready. It flies. Sometimes it feels like life itself is rushing past, and we're just trying to catch up. Another expression you may have heard is in the blink of an eye. Think about that image. The blink of an eye lasts less than a second. And yet sometimes that's how quickly months and even years can feel. One day you're celebrating New Year's, and the next moment it feels like December has arrived again. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone who says they want to learn English, but they wait. They wait until they find the perfect course, until they have more free time, until they feel fully confident. Maybe they wait until the kids grow older, or until their work schedule becomes easier. But while they wait, time keeps flying. And a year later, they're still in the same place, maybe even feeling worse because they realize how much time has slipped away. Now compare that with someone who doesn't wait. Someone who just starts, even if it's messy, even if it's only 10 minutes a day, even if their English isn't perfect. That person, 1 year later, will be amazed at how far they've come. The difference isn't in intelligence or talent. It's simply in action. One chose to begin, the other chose to wait. I think we all secretly hope that life will give us a signal, that perfect green light telling us, now you're ready. Now you should begin. But life doesn't work that way. There's rarely a perfect time to start anything meaningful. If you're waiting for life to become less complicated, you might be waiting forever. That's why it's so important to remember. While we hesitate, time doesn't hesitate. It doesn't press pause for us to catch up. It keeps ticking, steady and unstoppable, like the hands of a clock. Sometimes when I look back at my own life, I can clearly see the moments where I waited too long. Maybe you've had that experience too, looking back and realizing you lost opportunities because you were waiting for that magical right moment. And yet, I've also seen the opposite. Moments when I just jumped in, even though I wasn't completely ready, and somehow things worked out. Sometimes, action itself creates the conditions we were waiting for. It's almost like the universe rewards movement. So, here's the question I want to leave you with in this part. What are you waiting for right now? Are you telling yourself that you'll start studying more seriously next month? Are you thinking you'll take that chance, write that book, or apply for that job after something else happens? What if that something else never comes? What if a year from now you look back and realize that you're still waiting? Remember, time will pass anyway. That's the weight of time. It's heavy because it doesn't stop for anyone. It flies, it slips through our fingers, it disappears in the blink of an eye. And the only way we can lighten that weight is by using it well, by starting now, even imperfectly, instead of waiting for tomorrow to finally feel perfect. Failure versus regret. When we talk about time and action, there's one truth we can't avoid. Sometimes when you take action, you fail. And honestly, that's okay. Because failure, as painful as it can feel in the moment, is still lighter than regret. Failure may sting for a while, but regret has a way of staying with you, whispering in your ear for years, reminding you of what you didn't do. Let's think about an example. Imagine you've studied hard for an exam. You go in, do your best, and for some reason, you don't pass. Of course, that feels bad. Nobody enjoys failing, but even in that failure, there is something valuable. You've learned where your weaknesses are, you know what you need to improve, and most importantly, you now have experience. You can try again, and this time you're stronger, smarter, and more prepared. That's the gift failure gives us. Lessons. Now, compare that with someone who never takes the exam at all because they're afraid of failing. They don't want to feel embarrassed, or they don't believe in themselves enough to try. Fast forward a year, 2 years, maybe even more. That person may still be wondering, what if I had taken the exam? What opportunities would have opened for me? Where would I be now? That what-if question is the voice of regret. Unlike failure, regret doesn't teach you much. It just weighs you down with possibilities that never happened. Here's another example, a very human one. Think of someone who wanted to ask another person out on a date. Maybe they really liked someone, but they stayed quiet. They were too afraid of being rejected. So they said nothing, and life moved on. The other person eventually met someone else, maybe even got married. And years later that person still wonders, what would have happened if I had spoken up? What if they had said yes? That's regret, and it lingers far longer than the sting of rejection would have. Because rejection, at least, is clear. You tried, you got your answer, and you can move forward. Regret keeps you stuck in the past, replaying scenarios that never happened. There's a saying in English, failure is not the opposite of success, it's part of success. Every person you admire, whether it's an athlete, a writer, an entrepreneur, or even someone who speaks fluent English, has failed many times. They made mistakes, they fell down, they felt embarrassed. But they also learned, adjusted, and grew stronger because of those failures. Regret, on the other hand, doesn't give you that chance to grow. It only leaves you wondering, wishing, and sometimes blaming yourself for not trying. I remember hearing a story about a nurse who worked with people near the end of their lives. She said the most common thing patients told her was not, "I wish I hadn't failed so much." It was, "I wish I had been braver. I wish I had tried. I wish I had done the things I really wanted to do." Their pain wasn't about the mistakes they had made, but about the chances they never took. That's how heavy regret can be. It doesn't just disappear. It often grows heavier as time passes. So let me ask you, would you rather fail and learn, or look back years later and wonder forever what might have been? Think about your English journey, for example. You might make mistakes when you speak. Maybe your grammar isn't perfect. Maybe your pronunciation isn't clear yet. That's okay. Every mistake is a step forward. Every error is proof that you're trying. But if you never open your mouth, if you never practice because you're afraid of making mistakes, then regret will follow you. One day you'll look back and realize how much further you could have gone if you had just allowed yourself to fail along the way. The truth is, failure is temporary. It can feel uncomfortable, even painful, but it passes. Regret, though, stays. And when you weigh them side by side, regret is always heavier. Failure gives you something to work with. Regret gives you nothing but questions. So the next time you face a choice, whether to try and risk failing or to stay safe and risk regret, I hope you'll remember this. Falling is not the end. It's just part of the journey. But never trying, that's where the real loss is. Common barriers. When we think about taking action, whether it's learning a new skill, starting a project, or making a change in our lives, most of us don't stop because we don't care. We stop because of barriers, those invisible walls inside our minds that hold us back. And the interesting thing is, these barriers are rarely physical. They're not locked doors or heavy chains. They're mental and emotional, which can sometimes feel even harder to break through. One of the biggest barriers is fear of judgment. Think about it. How many times have you wanted to try something new, but then stopped yourself because you were worried about what other people would think? Maybe you wanted to practice English by speaking out loud, but the thought of making mistakes in front of others made you stay quiet. Or maybe you wanted to share your creative work, like writing or art, but you imagined people laughing at you, The fear of judgment can be powerful, almost paralyzing. But here's the truth. People are often too busy with their own lives to spend much time judging yours. And even if they do, their opinion doesn't define your value. Yet still, this fear can keep us silent, frozen in place, wishing we had been braver. Another barrier is self-doubt. That little voice in your head that whispers, "You're not good enough. Who are you to even try this?" Self-doubt can creep in before you've even begun. It tells you that other people are smarter, more talented, or more deserving than you are. And because you believe that voice, you hold yourself back. But here's the question. How do you know what you're capable of if you never even try? Self-doubt builds a cage around your potential, and the only way to break out of it is to act anyway, to prove that voice wrong. Then there's perfectionism. And oh, this one is sneaky. Perfectionism makes you believe that unless you can do something perfectly, you shouldn't do it at all. It whispers things like, "Wait until you can do it flawlessly. Don't show anyone your work until it's perfect." And what happens? You wait, you polish, you hesitate, and sometimes you never begin at all. Perfectionism might look like high standards, but in reality, it's just fear in disguise. The truth is, progress matters far more than perfection. As the saying goes, done is better than perfect. Every imperfect attempt brings you closer to skill, while waiting for perfection brings you nowhere. And then we have another common barrier. Waiting for motivation. Many people believe they need to feel inspired before they can start. They think, "I'll wait until I'm in the mood, until I have energy, until I feel ready." But motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes like the weather. If you depend on it, you'll make very little progress. What really creates results is consistency, showing up even when you don't feel like it. Ironically, motivation often follows action. Once you start, you feel motivated, not the other way around. But so many people wait, hoping motivation will strike like lightning. And in the meantime, time keeps slipping away. Now, let me ask you something directly. What stops you from starting? Is it fear of judgment? Is it self-doubt? Is it the perfectionist voice in your head? Or is it the habit of waiting for motivation? Be honest with yourself for a moment. Think about something you've wanted to do for a long time, but haven't yet begun. What barrier is standing in your way? Here's the good news. These barriers are common. You're not alone in facing them. Almost everyone struggles with fear, self-doubt, perfectionism, or lack of motivation at some point. But the difference between people who move forward and people who stay stuck is not the absence of barriers. It's the decision to push through them. Courage isn't about not feeling afraid. It's about acting despite the fear. So the next time you feel that familiar hesitation, pause and ask yourself, is this barrier real, or is it just in my mind? Most of the time you'll find it's not the world stopping you, but your own thoughts. And the beautiful thing is, thoughts can be changed, and habits can be broken. Personal anecdote/relatable story. I want to share something a little more personal with you here, because I think stories stick with us in a way that abstract ideas never do. Ideas can sound nice, but when you see them play out in real life, through people's choices, struggles, and triumphs, they suddenly feel more real, more possible. A few years ago, I decided I wanted to pick up a new skill, learning Spanish. Now, I had always told myself it would be useful. I love languages, I work with English learners every day, and I thought it would help me connect with more people. But here's the funny thing. I spent years saying, I'll start soon. I'll sign up for a class. I'll get around to it when life slows down. But of course, life never slowed down. Work was busy, responsibilities piled up, and months turned into years. One day, I suddenly realized that if I had just started back when I first thought about it, I would already be fluent. That realization hit me hard. I thought, time will pass anyway. If I had just done a little bit each day, even 10 minutes, by now I'd have a skill I've always wanted. That's when I stopped waiting. I bought a beginner's textbook, downloaded a free app, and committed to practicing, even if it was only a small amount each day. And let me tell you, those first weeks were messy. My pronunciation was clumsy. I kept forgetting words. And I felt like a child starting from zero again. But little by little, I improved. The most amazing thing was not just learning Spanish itself, but realizing that the act of starting, even imperfectly, was more powerful than all the years I spent waiting for the perfect moment. And this doesn't only apply to languages. There's a story you might already know about Colonel Harland Sanders, the man who created Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC. What's incredible about his story is that he didn't start his famous business until he was in his 60s. Before that, he had failed at many jobs. He worked as a farmer, a streetcar conductor, a soldier, and even tried law. But nothing really worked out. Most people at that age would have said, "It's too late for me. My time has passed." But Sanders didn't believe that. Instead, he took his recipe for fried chicken, traveled across the United States, and tried to convince restaurants to use it. He was rejected again and again, over 1,000 times. But he didn't give up. Eventually, one restaurant said yes, and from there his idea grew into one of the largest fast food empires in the world. Imagine if he had said, "I'm too old. It's too late to try." The world might never have tasted his chicken. These examples remind us that action beats waiting every single time. Whether you're young, middle-aged, or older, it doesn't matter. The clock is going to keep moving. And the beautiful part is, as long as you're alive, it's never truly too late to begin. You might not reach perfection. Honestly, none of us do. But you will reach progress. And progress, step by step, can completely transform your life. I sometimes ask myself, 10 years from now, what will I wish I had started today? It's a powerful question because it forces me to look ahead and realize that my future self depends on the choices I make now. Will I give that future self the gift of action or the burden of regret? That's a question worth asking yourself too. So maybe for you, it's English. Maybe you've been thinking about speaking more, but you're afraid of mistakes. Or maybe you've been planning to take that test, apply for that job, or move to another country, but you're waiting for the perfect moment. Let these stories remind you, there's no such thing as perfect timing. There is only today. If Colonel Sanders could start at 65, if I could finally begin learning Spanish after years of waiting, then you can start too. Right where you are, with what you have. Because action, even small action, is always better than standing still. Mindset shift. Progress over perfection. One of the biggest shifts we can make in life is learning to value progress over perfection. Perfection sounds attractive. It promises something flawless, something beautiful, something without mistakes. But perfection is also a trap. It's a moving target, always out of reach. And while we're chasing it, we often forget to simply start. That's why there's a popular saying, done is better than perfect. Because done means you tried, you created, you learned. Perfect often means you never finished, or worse, you never began. Think about it like this. When a baby learns to walk, no one expects them to be perfect. They stumble, they fall, they wobble on unsteady legs. But every step they take, no matter how awkward, is progress. Eventually, those shaky steps turn into confident walking, and later into running. Now imagine if a baby thought, I won't try until I can run perfectly. They would never learn to move at all. It sounds ridiculous when we picture a child that way, but many of us, as adults, do exactly that. We say, I'll speak English when my grammar is perfect, or I'll share my work when it's flawless. In the end, perfectionism becomes an excuse for inaction. Here's another expression I love. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. This is so true in every area of life. Nobody begins as an expert. Every musician once played out of tune. Every writer once wrote clumsy sentences. Every fluent English speaker once struggled with vocabulary and pronunciation. The greatness came later, through repetition, through mistakes, through showing up again and again. The only way to get there is to begin, right where you are, with all your imperfections. Consistency is the real secret. Small steps, repeated over time, create big results. Imagine you decide to read just 2 pages in English every day. That doesn't sound like much, right? But in a year, that's over 700 pages, the length of several books. Or imagine you practice speaking for 10 minutes a day. 10 minutes feels small, almost too easy to ignore. But in a month, that's 5 hours of practice. In a year, it's 60 hours. That's progress. Not perfect, not flawless, but real progress. And progress always beats standing still. I want you to pause for a moment and think about your own English practice. Do you sometimes hold back because you're afraid of making mistakes? Do you avoid speaking because you want to say things perfectly? What would happen if you shifted your mindset and saw every mistake as a step forward? Every time you speak, even with errors, you're training your brain, your mouth, and your confidence. You're building fluency, not perfection. And fluency grows through practice, not through silence. I've had students who were so focused on perfection that they almost never spoke. They wrote beautiful sentences on paper, but froze when it came to conversation. And then I've had students who made mistake after mistake, laughing at themselves, trying anyway. Guess which group improved faster? The ones who took action, the ones who focused on progress. They were willing to sound imperfect today, so they could sound better tomorrow. That's the mindset shift we all need. So here's the challenge. Instead of asking yourself, is this perfect? Start asking, am I moving forward? Perfection is a finish line that doesn't exist. Progress is the path that keeps you going. One step at a time, one attempt after another, progress adds up. And before you know it, you'll look back and realize how far you've come. Remember this, done is better than perfect. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Let those words guide you, not just in your English journey, but in anything you've been waiting to do. Start small, stay consistent, and trust that progress, not perfection, will lead you to growth. We've talked about how time keeps moving, how failure is lighter than regret, how barriers hold us back, and how progress matters more than perfection. Now, I want to turn the focus gently toward you. This is a moment for you to pause, reflect, and ask yourself some important questions. Because sometimes the best way to grow is not by listening to more advice, but by giving yourself the space to think and respond honestly from within. Let's start with a simple but powerful question. If you started today, where could you be in a year? Close your eyes for a second and imagine it. Think about your English learning journey, or any dream you've been holding close to your heart. Maybe it's passing an exam. Maybe it's speaking confidently with others. Maybe it's starting a small project you've been putting off. Now picture yourself 12 months from now. How much progress could you have made if you took small steps consistently? Beginning right here, right now? Another question I want you to ask yourself is this: what has been stopping me? Often we say we don't have enough time, or we're waiting for the perfect moment, or we fear failing. But if you're honest with yourself, is it really the lack of time? Or is it the habit of waiting? Is it truly about perfection? Or is it about the discomfort of starting small and imperfect? Take a moment and reflect. What is the voice in your mind that has been whispering reasons not to begin? Naming that voice is the first step to overcoming it. Now think about this. If not now, when? Life doesn't wait. Time doesn't stop. As we've said before, it moves on like a river that never pauses. 1 year from now, you will arrive somewhere. The question is, will you arrive closer to your goals, or will you still be standing in the same place, wishing you had started? Reflection is not about guilt. It's about awareness. It's about being awake enough to see where you are and brave enough to take the next step forward. I also want you to reflect on the difference between how you feel when you try versus how you feel when you delay. Think of a moment when you pushed yourself to act, even if you were nervous. How did it feel afterwards? Probably empowering, probably lighter. Now, compare that to the feeling of holding back, telling yourself, maybe tomorrow. That feeling often stays heavy on your chest. So ask yourself, do I want the energy of trying or the weight of regret? Finally, let me leave you with one more thought to reflect on. What is one small thing I can do today? It doesn't have to be big. Maybe it's practicing English for 10 minutes. Maybe it's writing one paragraph in your journal. Maybe it's sending a message to a friend in English. Whatever it is, let it be small but real. Because reflection without action is just daydreaming. But reflection followed by even the smallest action, that is the beginning of change. Take a deep breath now. Let these questions sit with you. Let your mind wander through them, and don't rush to answer everything right away. Sometimes the most powerful answers come slowly, like a seed that grows into a tree. The key is to let the questions sink into your heart and allow yourself to be honest with the answers. This time of reflection is your gift to yourself. Use it well. Taking the first step is often the hardest part of any journey. Many people sit with their dreams, their goals, their ambitions, and tell themselves, I will start tomorrow, or I will begin when I feel ready. But the truth is, there is no perfect time to begin, and waiting for the right moment is usually just another way of delaying progress. The secret to growth, to change, and to transformation lies in the courage to take one small step today. It doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be flashy, and it doesn't have to be perfect. What matters most is that you start. Because once you start, momentum builds, And with momentum, the impossible begins to look possible. Think about learning English as an example. Many learners wait until they feel good enough before speaking, but if you never speak, you never practice. You might think, I will speak when my grammar is perfect, or I will join a conversation when I know more words. But waiting for perfection is like waiting for a train that will never arrive. Instead, imagine setting a simple, small goal, speaking one English sentence to yourself every morning. That's it, just one. It may seem tiny, but over time, that daily habit will grow. After a week, you'll notice more comfort. After a month, you'll feel more confident. After a year, you will look back and realize how far you've come, all because of one small, brave step. Taking the first step also means being willing to take risks, even if it feels uncomfortable. You might stumble over your words, mispronounce something, or forget vocabulary mid-sentence. That's okay. Every mistake you make becomes a lesson that pushes you forward. Think of the phrase, fall forward, not backward. Falling forward means that even when you stumble, you still move ahead. Every attempt brings growth, while waiting brings nothing but regret. This is true not just in English learning, but in every dream you have. If you want to start a business, write a book, or learn a skill, the first imperfect step will teach you more than months of waiting for perfection. Here's another way to think about it. Imagine planting a seed. If you keep the seed in your hand, telling yourself, I'll plant it when the soil is perfect, when the rain comes, when the season feels right, you will hold that seed forever. But if you plant it today, even in ordinary soil, the seed begins to grow. Slowly, quietly, it develops roots and sprouts. Over time, that small act turns into something living and strong. Your goals are like seeds. They need action to grow, and action starts with planting. One small step. So ask yourself, what is one step you can take today toward your dream? Maybe it's writing down your goals. Maybe it's recording yourself speaking in English for 2 minutes. Maybe it's reaching out to a friend and practicing a conversation. Whatever it is, don't overthink it. And don't wait for it to be perfect. Just take the step, however small it may seem. Remember, progress is built from consistency, not from perfection. At the heart of all achievement lies bravery. The bravery to begin when you don't feel ready, to speak when you're afraid of mistakes, and to try even when success feels far away. It's in those small, brave steps that transformation begins. Think of every action as an investment in your future self. The version of you a year from now will thank you for the courage you showed today. So take that first step. Plant that seed. Speak that sentence. Fall forward and keep moving. Because once you start, the journey has already begun. And that is the most important victory of all. As we come to the end of today's episode, let's take a moment to look back on what we've explored together. We've talked about the unstoppable flow of time, how it moves forward whether we act or not, how it flies by in the blink of an eye. We've considered the weight of regret compared to failure, and why taking even small steps today is always better than waiting for the perfect moment that may never come. We've reflected on the barriers that hold us back, like fear of judgment, self-doubt, perfectionism, or waiting for motivation. And we've seen that acknowledging these barriers is the first step to breaking them. Most importantly, we've explored the idea that progress matters far more than perfection. That done is always better than perfect. and that you don't have to be great to start. But you have to start to be great. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending this time with me. Your dedication to listening, reflecting, and growing means so much. It's not always easy to face the challenges of learning and self-improvement, yet here you are, showing up for yourself. Thank you for being part of this journey, and thank you for trusting me to guide you through these thoughts. Every moment you spend learning, every word you practice, and every reflection you take seriously is a step forward, and I am genuinely proud of you for that. Before we finish, I want to leave you with one final thought, one challenge, if you will. Think about all that we've discussed today, and ask yourself, what is the one thing I will start today? It could be speaking one sentence in English, writing a short paragraph, sending an email you've been delaying, or taking a tiny step toward a personal dream. Whatever it is, start now. Take that first imperfect action. Because time will pass anyway, whether you act or not, and the regret of not starting is far heavier than any failure you might encounter along the way. Remember, every step you take, no matter how small, counts. Each moment you spend practicing, learning, or trying something new is an investment in your future self. And that future self, a year from now, will be grateful for the courage you show today. So make a choice to act, to move forward, to fall forward, not backward. Let your progress, not your perfection, be the story you write with your life. Thank you again for listening, for reflecting, and for being willing to take steps toward your growth. I hope today's episode inspires you to take that small but meaningful action. Carry this thought with you. Time will pass anyway. What's the one thing you'll start today?